Title: The Mirage of Expectations, A Modern Man's Journey in the World of Dating. Introduction: in the intricate web of modern dating, men are finding themselves increasingly perplexed and disheartened by a growing phenomenon, a collision of traditional expectations with contemporary attitudes that are often at odds. The expectations placed upon men to be providers, protectors, and steadfast figures of stability remain deeply ingrained in societal norms. However, these expectations are frequently coupled with characteristics and behaviors in women that challenge these very norms. From unrealized expectations to the paradox of non-traditional women demanding traditional roles, the dating landscape is becoming a maze of contradictions. This essay delves into the complex and often frustrating experiences of men navigating relationships with women who expect them to fulfill traditional roles, while simultaneously embodying a lifestyle that starkly contrasts with the values and qualities these roles were historically based upon. The story that follows explores the emotional and psychological journey of a modern man as he grapples with the conflicting demands and realities of dating in today's world. Chapter 1, The Allure of Expectations. John, a 32-year-old professional, is no stranger to the dating scene. With a successful career, a stable income, and a strong sense of responsibility, he embodies the qualities of a traditional provider. Raised with the belief that a man should take care of his partner, John had always envisioned himself in a relationship where mutual respect, loyalty, and shared values were the cornerstones of a lasting bond. However, as he delved deeper into the world of modern dating, John began to notice a disconcerting trend. The women he encountered seemed to be increasingly at odds with the traditional ideals they professed to value. Many of them, while desiring a man who could provide and protect, displayed characteristics and behaviors that contradicted these very desires. One evening, John met Sarah, a woman whose online dating profile described her as a strong, independent individual with a penchant for adventure. Her pictures showcased a glamorous lifestyle, exotic vacations, luxury cars, and a wardrobe that would make any fashionista envious. Intrigued, John arranged a date, hoping to connect with someone who shared his aspirations for a meaningful relationship. To his surprise, the woman he met in person was vastly different from the one he had imagined. Sarah's long, meticulously styled hair was actually a weave, her lashes were extensions, and her nails, adorned with white polish, were fake. Tattoos snaked up her arms, and her overall appearance, while attractive in a certain light, left John with a sense of disconnect. It wasn't the physical attributes that troubled him, it was the realization that the person before him might be more focused on external appearances than on the deeper qualities that truly mattered. Chapter 2, The Weight of Unrealized Expectations. As their conversation progressed, John found himself increasingly frustrated by Sarah's expectations. Despite her independent facade, it became evident that she still expected a man to fulfill traditional roles, paying for dinner, planning dates, and ultimately providing financial stability. Sarah spoke candidly about her desire for a man who could take care of her, yet her lifestyle and attitude seemed to contradict the very foundation of this expectation. Sarah's history of dating high-status men with significant financial means further complicated the dynamic. She casually mentioned her past relationships in which men had lavished her with expensive gifts and trips. These experiences had, in her mind, set the bar for what she expected in future partners. Yet she simultaneously professed a desire for equality and independence, leaving John in a quandary. John couldn't help but wonder, how could someone who prided herself on being self-sufficient also expect to be taken care of? How could she demand traditional roles from a man while embodying a lifestyle that contradicted those very traditions? These questions gnawed at John, leading him to question not only his own expectations, but also the very nature of modern relationships. The conversation drifted towards Sarah's perspective on relationships. She expressed frustration with men who couldn't meet her standards, lamenting that they often fell short of her expectations. Yet as John listened, it became clear that her expectations were rooted in a fantasy, a blend of traditional ideals and contemporary desires that were difficult, if not impossible, to reconcile. Chapter 3, The Paradox of Non-Traditional Women and Traditional Roles. Over the next few months, John continued to meet women who echoed similar sentiments. They wanted a man who could provide, protect, and lead, yet their own lifestyles, attitudes, and behaviors often clashed with these desires. Many of them had high body counts, a term referring to the number of past sexual partners, a topic that while often seen as a sign of sexual liberation, complicated the dynamics of traditional relationships. John found himself grappling with the paradox of these non-traditional women demanding traditional roles. On one hand, they wanted the security and stability that came with a traditional relationship, but on the other hand, they were reluctant to embrace the responsibilities and sacrifices that these roles entailed. One particular encounter with a woman named Emily left a lasting impression on John. Emily was intelligent, ambitious, and unapologetically modern. She had a high-powered career, a busy social life, and a confidence that was both attractive and intimidating. However, when the conversation turned to relationships, she expressed a strong desire for a man who could take care of her, both financially and emotionally. John was puzzled. Emily was more than capable of taking care of herself, yet she yearned for a relationship dynamic that harkened back to an era where men were the sole providers. Her expectations were clear. She wanted a man who could fulfill traditional roles despite her own non-traditional lifestyle. As John reflected on these encounters, he began to realize that the issue wasn't just about expectations. It was about the disconnect between those expectations and the reality of modern relationships. The women he met wanted the best of both worlds, a man who could provide the security and stability of a traditional relationship, while also embracing their modern, independent lifestyles. This contradiction left John feeling confused, frustrated. Over the next few months, John continued to meet women who echoed similar sentiments. They wanted a man who could provide, protect, and lead, yet their own lifestyles, attitudes, and behaviors often clashed with these desires. Many of them had high body counts, a term referring to the number of past sexual partners, a topic that, while often seen as a sign of sexual liberation, complicated the dynamics of traditional relationships. John found himself grappling with the paradox of these non-traditional women demanding traditional roles. On one hand, they wanted the security and stability that came with a traditional relationship, but on the other hand, they were reluctant to embrace the responsibilities and sacrifices that these roles entailed. One particular encounter with a woman named Emily left a lasting impression on John. Emily was intelligent, ambitious, and unapologetically modern. She had a high-powered career, a busy social life, and a confidence that was both attractive and intimidating. However, when the conversation turned to relationships, she expressed a strong desire for a man who could take care of her, both financially and emotionally. John was puzzled. Emily was more than capable of taking care of herself, yet she yearned for a relationship dynamic that harkened back to an era where men were the sole providers. Her expectations were clear. She wanted a man who could fulfill traditional roles, despite her own non-traditional lifestyle. As John reflected on these encounters, he began to realize that the issue wasn't just about expectations. It was about the disconnect between those expectations and the reality of modern relationships. The women he met wanted the best of both worlds, a man who could provide the security and stability of a traditional relationship while also embracing their modern, independent lifestyles. This contradiction left John feeling confused, frustrated, and ultimately disillusioned. Chapter 4. The emotional toll of incongruence. The weight of these experiences began to take a toll on John's emotional well-being. He started to question his own worth and whether he could ever meet the expectations that were placed upon him. The more he tried to conform to these traditional roles, the more he felt out of place in the modern dating world. John's frustration wasn't just with the women he encountered, it was also with himself. He struggled to reconcile his desire to be a provider and protector with the reality of dating women who, despite their demands for traditional roles, lived lives that were anything but traditional. The tattoos, fake hair, nails, and lashes were not the issue per se, it was what they represented, a focus on external appearances and superficial qualities that seemed at odds with the deeper connection John was seeking. The emotional toll of this incongruence began to manifest in John's relationships. He found it increasingly difficult to trust the intentions of the women he dated. Were they genuinely interested in him as a person, or were they simply looking for someone to fulfill a role? The lines between genuine connection and transactional relationships became blurred, leaving John feeling more isolated than ever. Chapter 5. The search for authenticity. Determined to break free from the cycle of disappointment, John decided to take a step back from dating. He needed time to reflect on his experiences and reevaluate what he truly wanted in a partner. It wasn't enough to simply fulfill a role. John wanted a relationship built on mutual respect, shared values, and authentic connection. During this period of introspection, John began to focus on his own personal growth. He explored new hobbies, strengthened his friendships, and deepened his understanding of what it meant to be a man in the modern world. He realized that the expectations placed upon men were not only outdated, but also unrealistic in the context of today's society. John also recognized that the women he had encountered were grappling with their own challenges. The pressures to conform to societal standards of beauty and success, while simultaneously seeking a meaningful connection, created a paradox that was difficult for anyone to navigate. The tattoos, fake nails, and other physical attributes were not inherently negative. They were often expressions of individuality and empowerment. However, when coupled with traditional expectations, they created a confusing and often contradictory dynamic. As John continued his journey of self-discovery, he began to develop a new perspective on dating. He realized that the key to a successful relationship wasn't about conforming to traditional roles or meeting unrealistic expectations. It was about finding someone who valued authenticity, honesty, and mutual respect, qualities that transcended superficial appearances and societal norms. Chapter 6, Embracing a New Paradigm. Armed with this newfound understanding, John re-entered the dating world with a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer interested in meeting the expectations of others. Instead, he focused on finding a partner who shared his values and vision for the future. It wasn't long before John met Rachel, a woman who embodied the qualities he had been searching for. Rachel was confident, compassionate, and authentic. She had her own career, her own passions, and her own sense of self-worth. While she appreciated traditional values, she didn't demand that John conform to outdated roles. Instead, she valued him for who he was, a kind, caring, and thoughtful individual. Their relationship blossomed, built on a foundation of mutual respect, trust, and understanding. John found himself in a partnership where both individuals contributed equally, where traditional roles were fluid, and where expectations were realistic and grounded in the realities of modern life. John's journey through the world of dating had been challenging, but it had also been transformative. He had learned that the key to a successful relationship wasn't about meeting the expectations of others. It was about finding someone who valued authenticity, honesty, and mutual respect. In Rachel, he found conclusion. The story of John's journey is a reflection of the broader challenges faced by men in the modern dating world. The collision of traditional expectations with contemporary attitudes has created a complex and often confusing landscape. Men are expected to fulfill roles that are increasingly at odds with the realities of modern life, leading to frustration, disillusionment, and emotional turmoil. However, as John's story illustrates, there is a way forward. By embracing authenticity, rejecting unrealistic expectations, and focusing on mutual respect and understanding, men can navigate the challenges of modern dating and find meaningful connections that transcend superficial appearances and societal norms. The key is not to conform to outdated roles, but to create a new paradigm of relationships, one that is based on equality, honesty, and genuine connection.